This video on Lucid is brought to you by Mastworks. Learn more in the description down below, and more on them later.
Hey everyone, me Kevin here. So I'm here with my father-in-law, who's washing the Lucid Air Dream Edition, which looks amazing. As I walk up, you just told me about what happened on the highway.
Going up to Cupertino and back, it drove beautifully. We charged one time in Paso Robles. We're going to give it a test. I've never done this before, so we'll see how easy it is. And had lunch while we were doing it. It was just great. Plenty of charging stations.
The Electrify America ones, right?
The Electrify America. Hours worth of charging. It went from 130 miles to 446 miles. So that's pretty awesome. And it cost us $0. With Lucid, at least this model, it came with 3 years of free charging at Electrify America stations.
Jeez.
So considering the price of gas, going up to Cupertino and back, which is about 330 miles each way, cost us $0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now wait a minute, you did stop at charge point though for like 20 minutes. What happened with the charge point charger?
So it's been almost an hour of charging, and I now have 156 miles, whereas I started with 135 miles. So it's basically 21 miles it has given me in almost an hour of charging. That is really pitiful. So I don't recommend going to these charging stations in shopping centers unless you just need a quick thing just to get you enough juice to get home. Be careful of the charge point or other stations, because they charged at 6.5 kilowatts per hour. And so I charged it for like an hour. They charged us $2.49, and it only gave us like 15 miles. It was
Oh, wow.
It was ridiculous, you know.
Yeah,
so
okay.
so
That's like paying gas prices, man. Who wants to do that?
And also 15 miles for an hour of charge, whereas an hour of charge at the Electrify America stations gave us over 200 miles.
Oh my gosh.
So
So it
much
does
faster.
actually charge really fast.
So fast, so fast. And that was at 150 kilowatts per hour, and I understand they have the stations that are 350 kilowatts per hour, which I understand that gives you the 200 miles in about 15 minutes.
That's just nuts.
So
Oh my gosh.
it's just great. Charged me $31, and second of all, now there's this weird humming noise that's coming. I don't know what it's from. Hopefully it'll go away.
So what about when you got it back? Because you had what ended up being a software bug where
Yes.
you couldn't turn the wheel, it locked up the steering, and it made you really concerned about what if that happened while you were driving.
Yeah.
What did Lucid tell you?
Now, before we keep going here, we gotta talk about Mastworks. I have documented on my channel growing my portfolio from 0 to over $30 million of net assets, and it's not easy. I learned about the stock market and the housing market so I could generate returns and steady income. I got smart on how interest rates and inflation affect the larger investment environment. And that is exactly why I also partnered with Mastworks, because Mastworks is the first and only art investment platform, and the only investment platform valued at over $1 billion, making them a unicorn. Mastworks brings you that amazing diversity, though. And this is what we all need in our portfolio, diversity. They bring an exclusive asset class to you. Masterworks acquires artwork ranging anywhere from $1 million to $30 million, and then they securitize that artwork like a painting, and they register with the SEC and then sell shares of it, which you could buy through their platform, Masterworks, linked down below. This idea isn't new. It's kind of like buying slices of a company. But this is unique in the fact that instead of it being an IPO for a stock, you kind of get to invest in IPOs for paintings. Now, the goal for Mastworks is to hold the art for 3 to 10 years. And then, of course, when they sell it, you end up receiving a portion of the proceeds proportional to your ownership stake, just like shares of a company. So check out Mastworks today via the link in the description down below. And consider diversifying your portfolio with art.
They took it back. They were absolutely wonderful. I gotta say, they picked up the car on a trailer bed, and they kept it for a few days. They said that they did find like a software bug in the steering thing that was correctable, and that it would never have been a steering issue. It was just upon startup, which that's when it did occur.
Ah, okay.
You know,
So it wouldn't happen while you were driving.
It would never happen. And I said, hey, listen, would you trust your dad to drive it? You know, that's me basically, and or your grandfather. And they said absolutely. So I trusted them, and they brought it back. They detailed it. They brought it back on a trailer, and drove it up to Cupertino, and it just performed wonderfully.
And you said one of their engineers from Torrance actually came up to give the car back to you.
Yeah, he happened to be the one that delivered it, and he gave it his blessing and said it's just an awesome car.
So now let's talk a little bit about the Lucid Valuation. Okay, it's been a while since we've talked about the Lucid Valuation. It's been quite a while. In fact, the last time I talked about Lucid was trading for about $35 per share. That is the last time we pulled up the spreadsheet. Now, I have not modified this spreadsheet at all. You can fact check me by going to my last Lucid video. This is what I wrote, many months ago when I did this spreadsheet, and I suggested the following: that there was a downside miss risk of the goal of trying to get to 1,000 deliveries in 2021, which we know their goal ultimately was 560. They ended up delivering somewhere around in the mid 100s by the end of the year. They ended up getting to my model number 214 by roughly January 20th. So obviously very, very delayed here. This is going to substantially delay the forecast here. But I'm just going to leave this like this for a moment, because imagine if we could get 150,000 Lucids out by 2025. That's only in 4 years at 80,000 in revenue per vehicle. This spreadsheet we have looked at before, but I want to show something remarkable here. When we completed this spreadsheet, we projected that with a 20% margin, that is 20% profit on these 80,000 vehicles, $80,000 vehicles, and a 100 times PE ratio in 2025, we would still be sitting at just about 22 cents of earnings per share, with, unfortunately, a more reasonable price by the end of 2025, around $21.53. That's not ideal, right? Because that's kind of where the darn thing is trading at now. And so at the time we had recorded this video, we recognized this had a potential downside of 9.26% for 5 years. Every single year to get down to that 21. Now we're at 21, okay? So now let's go ahead and revise this spreadsheet ourselves. Let's try to be realistic here, okay? And I'm not trying to sound like a bear. Let's just be realistic with it. All right, so this was whatever, 150. Doesn't really matter. 2021 doesn't matter. I think we're gonna have a lot more of a Neo-style launch, which Neo-style launch is gonna be going more like, hey, it's gonna be a milestone when we get to 1,000 vehicles. So if we can honestly get to 8,000 vehicles in 2022, and then maybe 20,000 vehicles in 23. Maybe we get to the full production of 2024 figures. Then we're gonna need another factory, so massive CapEx expenses, right? And that's gonna have to ramp, and it's not going to ramp very quickly. I think we're probably more in the neighborhood, if I'm being, a base case scenario here, maybe 50, 60,000 vehicles by 2025. Let's go with 60, okay? Just see what the valuation looks like then. We go to 60,000 vehicles in 2025. That's 4 years out. So we're going to type in here 4 years out. Now we're at 60,000 vehicles. Let's assume that they have not gone to their more mainstream vehicles yet, and they're still selling the premium vehicles in the range of $110,000. So we're going to bump this revenue per vehicle, right? Because we're scaling back how quickly we think they can actually scale their production. So we should increase the average price per vehicle, given that right now they're selling them for about $169. I'd say if we got to about 60,000 vehicles in 2025, 110K is probably closer to where we would be. I don't think we're going to get all the way down to that 80,000 per vehicle yet until we get into the hundreds of thousands of vehicles per year. Obviously, we're going to leave just zeros in here for other things like energy, insurance, semis, robotaxi, really, because this is all more like Tesla related, right? We're trying to compare this obviously to Tesla, which makes sense. We're going to use a 20% margin here. Now, we might be able to bump this. So let's bump it. Let's go ahead and go to where maybe Neo sits right now, which is going to be closer to about a 23% cost. So let's go to 77%. Let's do that. And that's pretty much, that's going to be the big number right here. So 77% will be the expense. That brings 23% of gross profit down. Operating expenses, probably 15%. Realistic. I think very realistic here. And then after their tax rate, they might have some credits here. Their effective tax rate's probably going to be lower. It's going to be more like 14 or 15%, especially in the industry they're in. But we're still only going to be sitting at about an EPS of around 16 cents a share. Let's just get rid of this for a moment here. And that's going to put us, well, I suppose we could leave it, well, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so we take this 16 cents per share, which I suppose if I double click this, if I expand this, I think it's a little bit more. Yeah, there it is. It's 15.96. Okay, so about 16 cents a share. And with a future PE of about 100, it brings us to a fair value of only about $16, right? However, we could probably bump the PE here, but now we're getting a little excessive to try to justify where we are today. I think this is excessive. So unfortunately, I do think that there's still risk here, right? There's definitely risk in Lucid. Now, it is a risk asset at 23.62, which is about where it is now. It is a risk asset, so if we do end up hitting some form of a bottom here after this March 16th meeting, it wouldn't surprise me to see a little bit of a movement to the upside. You know, I could see it selling for around that 30 range, but I do think that 29.30 is going to be a solid resistance for this company until we really start proving ourselves a little bit more. That doesn't necessarily mean this valuation is off. It just means it's going to be selling with a substantially higher multiple, right? But you can see here, there's a lot of pressure on this company's valuation where it is now until it can really prove that it can ramp. And right now, we're really not proving that. The other issues that we have, and I think this is probably your biggest issue here, is when we took delivery in January of this vehicle, we were told, hey, cruise control within 30 days. Okay, still no cruise control, right? So here we have a $169,000 car with no cruise control. We have LiDAR and we have all these cameras. But where is our potential autonomous driving? Even if it's mapped, right? Even if it's Chevy Cruise style or NVIDIA style or maybe an Apple partnership, where is that partnership? Where are details on that? And for us to really justify Tesla style valuations, we have to do two things. One, we have to prove to the consumer that our software suite is killer. We don't have that because Lucid doesn't have that partner and they're not building it out in-house. And number two, we have to prove that we can scale production, which is the hardest thing to do in manufacturing vehicles. So as much as I love the vehicle and I'm so happy that they're really taking great care of my father-in-law, they answer every single question he has. They've got some great people. There's a person who works at Lucid. Shout out to her, Winter. You're freaking amazing. You have made my father-in-law such a happy customer. So important. Valuation-wise, though, you've got an uphill battle. Let's just put it that way. There's really no sense in playing with this because the earnings are going to be so nominal for so long that this is one of those stocks where diamond hands are needed to be in it because you're going to be on a ride. Again, I do think there could be an upside movement here in the short term. I think we'll still get rejected at 30. I don't think we're going to see some of these momentum highs like we saw at Rivian or Lucid at any point in the near future here. So I certainly wouldn't be buying call options on this. If I had shares, I'd probably be selling calls on little rally days. So for example, if we rallied up to 28, I'd be selling calls against my position. But it's going to be a bit. It's going to be a minute. For this to really get moving. So my thoughts, hopefully that's helpful for you.
Which I'm finding that to be true.
Really? Okay, yeah. and because initially after that happened, you were nervous about driving to Cupertino and back because we're down in SoCal.
Back to Ventura from beautiful Cupertino. It's a beautiful day up here. And the Lucid has 413 miles as far as the range goes. So we'll see how it lines up. The trip back to Ventura is 313 miles.
And no issues.
No issues whatsoever. I even put that pad in because I didn't want to load the luggage on the stuff.
On the fabric, yeah. And what just happened with somebody on the highway here? They were driving a BMW next to you?
So we're out constantly getting looks from people because it's a unique color scheme and it's a different looking car and it's new and people know about Lucids, I guess, from the internet. But I was driving along the freeway and a BMW passed me on the left and the passenger window went down and some girl stuck her hand out and go, yay, like
That's
that.
Amazing.
So it's like, well, okay.
Awesome. Well, it looks great. Thanks for the update on the Lucid.
All right.